Hi,
Hi guys.
Jesse.
How are you?
Good. I surprised you. I jumped in there first this
I know.
time.
I was like, whoa, what I usually say hi first and like sing something. How are
I
you?
know. And I just got in there. Maybe I'm getting into podcasting now.
Yeah, maybe. Look at you.
I know.
You podcasting queen. We've been so good with all of our content that we're putting out there. I'm loving all of it. I feel like we were talking about we've been firing on all cylinders, the blog, the podcast, our social. We are on TikTok now. I'm like a little bit of a TikTok star, but we won't get into that.
Okay. Has one TikTok that gets, 5-figure views,
It
counts,
goes H-list viral.
counts herself as a viral star. Okay.
I've been annoying Jen and Colin all week, just being like, well, I'm a star now. So
I
there's
mean, you
that.
guys, she had this post go, a little bonkers about her hair. And the whole day we're trying to get work done. And I'm like, Jesse, have you gotten this done? Stop looking at your comments on TikTok.
It was so exciting.
Mm-hmm.
It was so exciting. Anyway,
Mm-hmm.
I felt very
So,
cool too. Colin doesn't think I'm cool. So it's nice to be
no,
cool.
Colin
'Cause I'm
does
like,
not think you're cool. Although I wonder
yeah.
if Colin doesn't think you're cool, she definitely doesn't think I'm cool.
All right. What are we talking about today?
All right, so today's going to be a rather quick episode because we want to start mixing it up a little bit. And we're going to chat more about branding and 5 questions you should be able to answer about your brand. So if you're a small business owner, people underestimate this. When people think of branding, they think it's the look and feel, their logo, maybe a tagline. And while that's true, those are the components of your brand. What's actually important is the foundation of your brand behind it, the words that bring you to that logo, the words that inspire the designer to then create the logo. And that's
And
what
then also
we
like
often
what it makes people feel on the other side. Like it's kind of a two-way.
Yeah. So all these things, this is what we refer to as brand foundations. And this is some of the work that we do. We also have it as part of the collective where you're able to build it yourself for your brand. But in order to build your brand foundations, you have to be able to answer 5 questions about your brand.
Mm-hmm.
So the first question that you want to be able to answer is, what is your mission statement? Jesse, do you want to summarize what a mission statement is?
Yeah, I was going to say, it's like kind of crazy how many people don't know what this is when you talk to them, like when small business owners. And I guess it's not so crazy because small business owners or entrepreneurs are generally like creative people who like have lots of ideas. That's how they landed there. However, I think that a lot of people are missing opportunities actually because they're not clear on exactly what they're going after at this exact moment. And if you've been here long enough, you know that like we're big fans of putting things in the parking lot. You can do everything. You can't do everything all at once. So I think that figuring out exactly what your mission statement is will allow you to figure out like where those things fall and give you direction. And also allow you to tell customers, because I think also if you're not clear what you're doing, then your customers aren't clear what you're doing. And that's like the easiest way to lose people.
Speaking of customers, that's a good segue into the second question, which is, who is your target audience? I got to tell you, Jesse, this one drives me bonkers sometimes when we talk to people. The worst answer you can give is, I don't know. I feel like it's for a lot of people. It's like almost for everyone.
Someone told us once, like, I think their target audience was like 17 to 52-year-old women. And I was like, what?
No, they had some type of, they had, yes, you're right. But they also had some type of qualifier that was like, who have a passion for something in life. It was like,
it was like
a heartbeat.
People who drink water. Like, I think that where people get lost on this one is they are so scared to alienate people. And I think that they forget that just because your target is like 30 to 35-year-old women in big cities or something does not mean that you are not going to get people that are outside of your target audience. It's not like you're going to be like, oh, no, you're 28. You can't be here. Like, you got to go. You can't buy from us. And so I think that that's important is everyone has like fringe audience, but who are you speaking to? Because that's going to inform a lot of your branding and also like literally your marketing.
So that's actually what you just said is super important. Your target audience is not a qualifier. It's just a focal point of who you're talking to.
Right. And like, I think that it's so important because otherwise you're not speaking to anyone. I always like, I think a great way is, you know, when you get those ads on Instagram, I particularly am like, I feel like they were always targeting me, but there was one, that was like a couple weeks ago. It was like, are you a marketing agency, like a small marketing agency owner who feels overwhelmed, but isn't ready to hire more staff? And like something like so specific where I was like, yes, that's me. Give me everything you have, you know, where it really speaks to people and it like increases your conversion so much.
Yeah, absolutely. So the third thing that's then really important is what are your core values? Jessie, I feel like you're also a good one to speak to this because you're so good with understanding your personal, but also then business values.
Yeah, I think
they're separate.
I think that this is actually something that a lot of people think they know, but if you actually haven't sat down with it, then it'd be interesting. Like I know that when we did this for our personal brands recently, it's part of the personal brand blueprint workbook. And we were surprised by some of the ones that like when you really have to narrow it down to like 10 values, you can be surprised by like exactly what comes out of that. And I think that is something that you might be like, well, you know, like these broad values, like integrity, like, yeah, you know, but I think a good way to think of this is sometimes small businesses, when you start out, you're just like, I want to make, you know, $20 million or something, you know, a huge lofty goal. But then you kind of start to get into it and you realize, oh, actually connecting with customers is more important to me than making $20 million. And that's where like you start figuring out like, what do you really value? Because that will actually inform a lot of how you run your business.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And I know that today's episode is really about small businesses, but I would actually recommend that they download the Personal Brand Discovery Workbook because that value sheet is just so helpful, both personally and professionally.
Yeah, it was. I thought most of the people I know got so much out of that. And I thought that was a super interesting activity.
So next up is honestly well, maybe it's not my favorite. I don't know. It's a toss up between 4 and 5, but one of my favorite is what sets you apart from the competition. Actually, this is my favorite, so I'm going to run with it. I love competitive difference and thinking through it not in a competitive way, but really what makes you and your company different than the rest. What makes you special? And when you're crystal clear on that, it's really helpful. One of the best ways to do this is actually to look at your competitive set and not in a critical way, but just take note of how you're different. Wow, I really admire how they do this. I'm different because I do that.
Yeah. I think there are a lot of people like, again, I think when you look at your competitive set, it's not like you have to be like gross. It's like, it's like when you see a beautiful room on Instagram and you're like, that is gorgeous. And I would never want that in my house. Like I could never, you know, like a maximalist room that's like pink and orange. Sometimes I'm like, that is so cool. I would have hives if that was in my home, you know? And I think that that's kind of where you can start to see differences is like, you're like, they're really good at that. And I never want to do that, you know? Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think that's like,
even the most subtle differences, being really clear in what your difference is and then speaking to it again and again. So it takes the average person hearing something at least 3 to 5 times in order for it to process. Mm-hmm. And the average attention span is around 2 seconds. So hitting the same points is really important.
Yeah. Small business owners always think they're being too repetitive. And I'm like, you could say it 999 more times and people still like people overestimate how much people are paying attention to them. I think in
Totally.
all aspects. Like, no, everyone is like caught up in their own life. I promise you, it takes so much repetition for messages to land with people.
Yeah, I agree. And then last but not least is, how do people feel after doing business with you? So this is a really important one to get clear on as well. You want to put yourself in their shoes and how specifically they feel. And in a perfect world, what would they say after buying your product or using your service?
Mm-hmm.
This is something that we do with our brand foundations all the time. And it's one of the most fun and compelling parts.
Yeah, I think like this really aligns with one of the things we do is like brand character, which is really kind of like, who is your brand if it was a person? And it helps to literally think through like of your brand as a full-on person, and understand like, because people where you're like, oh, when I leave my grandma's house, I feel X. That's what you want to think through when like people leave you. What do they feel? Or leave your store or buy your product? Like, what are they feeling? Are they feeling confident? Are they feeling happy? Are they feeling energized, excited? Like, what is it that you want them walking away with?
Yeah, exactly. So these are the tips that we would use if you are just starting your business. I would highly recommend that you jump on the Collective waitlist or join the Collective as soon as you can. It's intentionally a really affordable option to get help. We're also always
Mhm.
here where we can help you too. If you're curious about how to get started, grab one of our 20-minute free jump starts.
Yeah, new business calls. Yeah. We will leave all the links you need in the show notes, and we will see you next week.
See you
Bye,
soon.
guys.